سلسلة محاضراتنا للأسبوع العلمي الرابع مع البروفيسور اندريا باليرمو. Professor at College of Medicine and Dentistry, Birmingham, Professor at the University of Paris, to give his lecture entitled Immediate Ruling from Central Tooth Arch.
So good morning, everybody, once again. I'm here for the third day, so I think I'm starting to be like a neighbor for you. So we will talk again, a nightmare, I mean, for you. We will talk again about immediate loading. And in the last 2 days, we spoke about immediate loading, we spoke about IML, we spoke about biology and how biology is extremely important to lead our profession. That's very, very important because biology as a program is always the same. So that's a very important key point. And I try to explain you the importance of immediate loading to reach our goal. That means to treat our patient and to make our patient very, very happy. But you know, there are also contraindications to immediate loading. So I want to today talk about contraindication to immediate loading. And first of all, contraindication to post-extracted immediate loading, because immediate loading is contraindicated if it's impossible to reach a primary stability. So the other thing I told you last day, please choose an implant system that gives you a very, very high primary stability. This is extremely important, both if you do immediate loading or if you do a standard technique with immediate loading. You really need the primary stability. Because of the biological reasons, the primary stability goes down for all the first months. When regeneration techniques such as sinus augmentation or split crest have to be applied, of course, avoid to do immediate loading, do 1 miracle per time. If the tooth that has to be extracted presents an altered gingival margin, what does it mean? The immediate loading, I told you yesterday, is very good because if you place the implant and you place the crown, you can have a very good shape of the gingiva. You can keep a very good shape of the gum. But if the profile is the start, if the profile is not correct, it's not a good idea because immediate load will keep the right profile, but will be wrong. But we will see this case. The other option, in the case the extraction leads to the loss of the buccal bone. If you do extraction and you lose buccal bone, you can't forget to place an implant in immediate loading. So let's start with the altered gingival margin. Look here. This is a central incisor, upper central incisor, and the margin of the lateral incisor is wrong. It's aesthetically wrong. But I did a mistake here because I decided to do post-extractive immediate loading, and I did extraction. I placed the implant, I placed the abutment, I placed the temporary crown, and that's a mistake because from an aesthetic point of view, the margin of the lateral incisor had to be in the right position because the zenith point of the central of the canine, you do a line, and the margin had to be lower to the line. So what happened here? I did immediate loading and I failed because it's an aesthetic failure. But the problem is not related to immediate loading or to the implant system. The problem is related to my approach to this case because I started in a situation I couldn't start. But as I'm a student, I did it many times. So I made a lot of mistakes for you. Today I will show you a lot of mistakes. Look here, the same story. We are in a high aesthetic area, and the gingival margin is not correct in aesthetic point of view, but anyway, I made for the second time the same error. I put the implant, put the abutment, I put the temporary, and look, it's not correct. Because you have to think that the first thing that human look for aesthetic is symmetry. I give you some example. Think about the Parthenon in Greece. It's beautiful. Why is it beautiful? Because it is in golden proportion. The credit card, you all have a credit card. You look at a credit card and say, wow, it's nice. It's not because of the money, it's because it's golden proportion. The Chanel bag for the girls is in golden proportion. So the symmetry for human eyes is very, very important. So a big mistake here, because I should have symmetry of two central incisors, I don't. And this is the final result with a pinky ceramic. It is not good. At the end, the patient was happy because she didn't display the area, it wasn't again smile, but I made a mistake. Other case, if I do extraction and I lose buccal bone, I don't have to put an implant there because it's impossible once again to manage a good aesthetic result. So if I want to obtain something like that, so a symmetry of the gum, maybe I have to avoid immediate loading and to do something different. So in the last 2 days, I told you I push a lot with immediate loading, but sometimes you have to stop and you have to say, okay, I will do something different. I will do a standard technique. And what I want to show you now is something very, very easy, very interesting. I was very young at the time, and this was my professor in New York University. He's a dentist now. He's one of the best professors I ever had. And he teach me the KISS principle. And for him, KISS principle means keep it simple, stupid. So I don't know if I were the stupid or simple and stupid. I didn't realize this. Anyway, what it teach me is that we have to do easy surgery. That's a very important key point. Because if we try and do very hard surgery, we do 1 time, we do 2 times, and then we stop because we don't like to do hard thing. And that means that our skill will never increase a lot. So my idea, and that's why I support IML, because it is an easy system. What is easy is the higher sophistication. So the technique it teach me is the so-called ice cream technique. It's a very easy regenerative technique to do a socket preservation. Here is a collagen membrane, resorbable collagen membrane. You cut it to obtain something like an ice cream, or can be also a triangle. It's up to you. You do the extraction. The margin is not very good. I don't have buccal bone, so in this case, don't do immediate loading. You wait with a socket preservation, but easy way. I don't open the flap here because I told you yesterday, and we have to go back to this, that when we open a flap, we do have a kind of healing. If we don't open a flap in a biological point of view, the way of healing of the bone of the gum is completely different. And please keep this on your mind. So we put the membrane and we put the graft inside, a xenograft. I don't like xenograft, but here is great for our reasons because it will stay there. And you pack it very, very good inside, suture, and that's it. And then you will have enough buccal bone to place an implant. I will show you now here that will be much more easier to understand because the yellow part is the bone. I don't have buccal bone, so I take my membrane, I put it inside. Even better if you reach the apex, and then you pack a lot of material inside, a lot of graft material, xenograft material to block everything. Then you suture, and that's it. So that's a very easy surgery. And what is easy? You do it again and again and again. your skill increase. So the question could be, so what happened here? Do you leave the membrane exposed in the mouth? Yes, it works. It's not me that I'm telling you this. Dennis Tarnow teaches us this, and I'm doing this since maybe almost 20 years now. You won't have any problem for leaving exposed collagen membrane in the mouth. Of course, the patient has to brush or to clean it properly, but you don't have any problem. So now I changed and I try to do in a better way. So the profile are not correct. I don't do immediate loading. I do the structure. I prepare my ice cream, collagen ice cream. I prepare my xenografts from, I think from coal or from gold, I don't remember. It doesn't really matter because think about this. When we put a xenograft, it's like you go on the wall and you take something. It doesn't change if a horse, if it's a cow, if it's a pig. It doesn't really change because there is no cell at all. There is no cellularity, and so it's just a graft. It's just a scaffold. There is no any biology in the graft you buy from the market. And so the graft, the membrane suture exposed. Of course, you can use a Maryland bridge during the healing. Don't use a removal. It's better. And look, the membrane on the left is exposed membrane, and the epithelium is start to move on the membrane, and it will become epithelium. It will become So here is the healing. So at that time, it's quite easy to start the surgery and to have the exact symmetry of the case. Another case, the same story, but I didn't make the same error because I did extraction. I have two problems of volume, vertical and lateral implantation. And in this case, I put a beta-glucan sulfate. Beta-glucan sulfate is supposed to be a graft material, compatible, resolvable. It's not true. Also for glucan sulfate. Because look, the patient, I obtained the volume, but look here, this is 6 months later, and what you see there is calcium sulfate. That one is not born. It will never be born. So please remember, when we use a xenograft, we don't have bone. We do have something that in a mechanical point of view works, but it's not bone. Even if we use bios, it's a very good material. But after 10 years, we will find an inclusion of bios in between bone, so it's different. Anyway, in a mechanical point of view, it goes, and so I go with my surgery. As I told you yesterday, this is a sulfide implant with a fat-to-fat connection. I won't put the implant under the level of the bone, because if I do this, it's a mistake. If I won't go under the level, that is a good thing. I have to use, for example, a universal implant. I have to use a conical connection with the platform shifting. Here's the suture, here's the temporary, and sorry, jump. Final, I will show you later. This is the final. So, go back to the story of the graft material. The xenografts, believe me, they never go back to the bone. What is provided by nature. Because when we do an extraction, what do we have? We have healing. And as I told you yesterday, why we have healing? Because if we don't have healing, the patient dies. Not today with antibiotics, but in 100 years ago, it's an open wound that you can dry. So what the body really wants to perform is a quick healing. And you know why we lose a little bit of buccal bone? It's very easy. Because as the wound have to heal very fast, very quickly, if we lose a little bit of bone, it will be easier for the epithelium to go there and close. That's why usually when we do extraction and we don't do nothing, we lose a little bit of buccal bone. So the question now could be, but if I put an implant after I do the extraction, This avoids severe alteration of the bone volume or not. So there is a hard question. So if I do extraction and leave, I know I will lose a little bit of buccal bone. If I do extraction, place the implant, do I avoid the loss of buccal bone or not? Let's say there are a lot of publications, also very old publication. One of maybe the most important is from 2004, because it's a human study with post-extractive implant and a second surgery after 4 months. And the result was almost shocking, because the authors say I have a 56% of buccal bone loss and 30% of lingual bone loss. So if I see this paper, I should think, no, I can't do this, because even if I place the implant, I will lose a lot of bone. But the point, and is also something I want to tell you very good this morning with you, is that we have to read the literature very carefully. When you read the paper, please don't read only the abstract and conclusion. That's what we usually do. Read the paper, read how the study is done. And for example, here we have a lot of problem in my point of view, because the doctor here, a very good doctor, Dr. Botticelli, has opened a big flap for everything, to place the implant, to place the healing abutment. So first mistake, you are opening a big flap. The second point, in the second mistake, there is no load. And as I told you yesterday, to have the bone healing, we need load. Until we don't put the implant under load, there is no good bone there. So there are two problems. And the third problem is that the bone is always related to what it's going to do. So if in this area, maybe there was a very big root, and I put, and it's correct, a smaller implant, why the bone should be so big? It was so big for a big canine. You don't need to be so big for the screw. That's why we have a resorption of bone. The reality is, if we do extraction in a gentle way, in the proper way, we place the implant better without elevating a flap, because I told you yesterday, or maybe the first day, when we elevate a flap, we cut the gum, and there are a lot of substances that go and inhibit the BMP, the bone morphogenetic protein. And the bone morphogenetic protein are the one that create the bone. So that's why I don't agree with this interesting publication. The reality is that we place an implant, we can really keep the bone, and we can use the osteoblastic activity of the alveolus that is much more higher than the standard bone without any extraction. Another point, another question that is related to this gap. What does it mean gap? Because the question could be, okay, but if I do extraction, doctor, and I place the implant, and you tell me you will keep the bone, but I told you yesterday, yes, but you have to put the implant in a lingual position, always. What does it mean? That there is some gap in between the buccal bone and the alveolus. Is this a problem? No, at all. Look here. There is the implant, is a 4 millimeter diameter implant, and I do have a very big gap there. Doesn't matter. There is no any risk. Someone in the past said, hey, no, you can't do this because the epithelial cells are very fast and go in the alveolus. It's not true. The only way for the epithelium to walk is to walk on the clot. So the epithelium can't jump. So the epithelium, if you want to move, have to move on the clot. And where you have clot, you will have bone. You won't have epithelium there. I give you an example. If you do extraction, you will never, and a simple structure, leave it. You will never see the epithelium going to the apex of the alveolus. Never. Why? Because there is the clot, and the epithelium can walk on the clot. So you will see just a little bit depression because you lose a little bit of buccal bone. That's it. Then, if we put also the load is even better for the bone, but also better because I can use the acrylic crown going down the gum. So the acrylic crown, what does it become? It became a non-resorbable membrane, very cheap. Stay there and stop the epithelium in any case, clot or not clot. So this makes big difference. And the only problem for this is the preparation of the site, because what we have to do is the so-called double alveolus preparation. What you see there is the alveolus in the upper and my preparation in the lower, because the preparation has to be lingual, and this can be not very easy with a central incisor or with a canine. Of course, I will have a gap, so this is a universe 4.0. There is about 4 millimeters of gap from the buccal bone. No problem, no problem. The important thing, don't do the suture. Because the suture, if you try and have a primary closure, it's not good. You have to leave open everything, with or without the crown. So you can see here the temporary, and the suture you see there is just to gentle put the gum, to keep the gum on the temporary. And here is the final crown. So to summarize a little bit what we spoke about during this free day, let's talk about surgical technique. What we have to do. First of all, a traumatic extraction. The hardest part is the extraction. Because if you do the extraction and you do it very fast, very, very quickly, you don't want to lose time, you will lose bone, buccal bone, and you won't put the implant. So very gentle extraction. Try not to touch the buccal bone, that's very important. Then we can clean the alveolus with a spoon, with a drill, or with a piezo. But as I told you yesterday, we don't need to. So you can clean, but please don't eliminate all PDL. Because as I told you, in the PDL, there is a lot of BMP. So it's extremely important to keep the PDL. Yesterday I did the last surgery, and before doing the extraction with a probe, I went all around the roots. Why? Because I want to try to disconnect the PDL from the roots and to keep the PDL in the alveolus, to keep the BMP. 1, 2, 3. So, a alveolus cleaning, a gentle alveolus cleaning. The only important option if there is a apical lesion. In that case, of course, you have to clean very, very well. The other point, find primary stability. I told you the most important thing is to have primary stability. Then we have to put the implant more lingual in the alveolus, and piezo can be very useful for this. And the implant has to be 1 millimeter deeper in relation to the buccal bone. Why? Because the biology told us that I will lose a little bit of buccal bone. So let's see in a practice. So in a area of 1, 2, 3 extraction, and as I already told you yesterday, when you do a CT scan, very often you can see a canine that is flying. It's outside of the bone. There is very thin buccal bone. Also central incisor, it happens very, very often. But it's good because it is a root, there is a PDL, there is BMP, and there is the bone turnover. It's not good for the implant, because if I put the implant in this position, I don't have PDL, I don't have DMP, and I will lose the buccal bone. So the position has to be always lingual. I will start with a very shaped drill, or I can use also round, or sometimes, if I don't have piezo, I can use also high-speed bar. So here is the position for the central, and you will see this is the insertion. You can see it always lingual, always palatal. 4-5. This is the best situation. So what I teach to my students in my private course, I always tell them, listen, a small group course with life suffering, and I always tell them, okay, in 1 month you will place your first implant. And they say, no, it's impossible. Maybe they finish university 2 days before. But it always happens. I will tell you how to do it. It's very easy. In the area of the premolar, the superior premolar, you do an extraction. After you do an extraction, you can find 2 alveolus, one lingual and one buccal. Okay? So you never put an implant before, but you just buy 2 implants from the market. The diameter is 4.0 and 2 lengths, 10 and 11.5, and the insertion tool. After you do the extraction, you go and measure the length of the root, and without any preparation, without any drill, you take an active implant like Universe and just screw it in. That's it. And you will do your first implant. What I suggest to you, don't discuss about this with the patient. Otherwise, the patient will be very, very stressed, with a lot of fear. And you too, you start to think, oh, tomorrow I will do my first implant. So don't do this. You do an extraction, and at that moment, you ask the patient, listen, would you like to wait another 5 minutes? I will put the implant for free. So you will put the implant for free to the patient. And you tell the patient, later on, if everything is good, you will pay me the crown. So you will do the first implant without the surgical kit, just 2 implants and insertion 2. And later on, the patient, it will go very well, you will see. And later on, the patient will pay the crown. That means that everything for you, the patient pay your education. So your education is for free. And then after, of course, you can increase your skill. That's very important. Because if you think to start with a heart surgery, with opening a big flap, and to prepare a lot of bone, and to have a very big surgical kit, you are scared of this. You don't do this. You have to do this step by step. And very fast, you will reach your result. So please remember, by 2 implant, insertion 2, I give you the result 4.0 per 10, 4.0 per 11.5. That's it. And extraction, lingual alveolus, screw it in. 1 minute, no more. 6 and 7. Here is another story, because it's quite hard here to do post-extractive implantation, because a option is to go in the middle of the 3 roots. Is not very easy. And the other option is to go, when possible, in the palatal roots. It depends from the angulation, but don't start from here. If we go in the lower, for 1, 2, 3, always the same story. We have to go lingual. For the premolar, if I do have 2 alveolus, it's the best. I go in the lingual, but I suggest you start with the upper. Why? Because in the upper, the bone is much more softer, first of all, and there is no any surgical risk. Because please remember, the area that you really have to respect in oral surgery is the inferior alveolar nerve. Never touch it. 6, 7, we once again can go in the septum. Is quite difficult. Sometimes someone put all in the mesial or in the distal, but I don't like because there is a cantilever for one implant is not good. But if we do multiple extraction, we can solve the problem because, for example, if we do 6 and 7, we can put in the 6 mesial one implant and in the 7 distal the second implant. If we extract also a premolar, we can put the premolar, then distal and distal. So, believe me, it will be very easy, and this is the best way to start. And if you do like that, and you say to the patient, it's 5 minutes more, it's for free, why the patient should say no? So you will start with the first case. Of course, when you start with the first case, don't put the crown, put the healing abutment, that's it, and wait for healing. And you increase your skills step by step. As I told you in the first day, there is a problem with implant surgery, oral surgery, but with dentistry in general, with medicine in general. And the problem is the complication. Believe me, you will always have complications. I'm sorry I'm telling you this, but it's the reality. If someone tells you no complication, it's not true. Or maybe it is 10 implants per year, okay, maybe you can avoid your complication. Otherwise, in any field, also in cosmetic dentistry, in any field of dentistry, you have this kind of problem. If you don't want problem, a professor told me, go to the bar and drink coffee. If you work, you will have problem. But the key point is how to manage the complication. That's the key point. That's why it's important to show complication, because we have to know how to manage. So what kind of complication we can have with implants? Implant failure, fracture of the abutment of the implant, and peri-implants infection. These three are the three main complications. Implant failure can be related to a lot of things. Can be related to your surgery, can be related to the prosthetic part, can be related to a lot of things. But you know, sometimes it happens because we are connected with a bone healing. So we can do everything perfect and still we can have implant failure. Another thing that is important, when a company comes in your office, they told you, oh, look doctor, look over here. We have the 98% of survival rate of our implant. You say, wow, 98% of survival rate of your implant. So we think that means that if I place 100 implant, maximum I can have problem with 2. It's correct? It's not correct. Because the survival rate is one thing. Another thing is success rate. And you will see, nobody will tell you 99% of success rate. I will show you the difference in between survival rate and success rates. Once again, we have to read carefully all the paper. So, on this other 2 points, and especially on this, we have to take really care. Because the fracture of the abutment or the fracture of the implant, it happens. If you don't use a very good implant system, it may happen. It may happen quite often. So I understand that when you have to buy an implant, you say, okay, maybe I could spend a little bit less with the system. You are losing money. Spend the right money and please avoid the fracture. I will show you some study we did in IML, and I won't tell you, of course, the name of the company, but we are talking about very, very famous brand, and we have seen a lot of fracture zone also in very famous brand. So please, we have to avoid this. We have to avoid because it's a big problem. Like here, this patient is not a patient of mine, is a patient of a good friend of mine. And he did standard implantology. He did extraction, he wear a removal, waiting for healing. He placed 2 implants, wait 3 months for healing, and after 3 months, he placed the temporary and then the final crown. And then what happened? 2 implants broken. 1, 2. This is maybe the most famous brand of implant we have in Italy. So it's not a bad company, but not so good. And he called me, he was destroyed because he told me, Andrea, the patient is very, very hungry because he stayed for a long, long time. First removal, then with a temporary. We arrived at the ceramic, and after a little bit, it gets broken. How to manage the situation? It's a big problem because this is a osseointegrated implant, and here is the lingual cortical because the position is correct, but we are in a very dangerous area. So what I decided to do here to help my friend is to remove the implant. Of course, in this case, I'm forced to open the flap. I will use the piezo to take this implant out. I will use the piezo to take 2 new implants. And what I'm doing here to use is the implant for IML, the power implant, the one with 1 piece. So I have no any risk of fracture of the implant of the abutment. I use the piezo here to be very gentle bone, and as I showed you yesterday, because if I cut with the piezo, I will have a porous bone, and that's very good for the back hybrid to have a linkage there and to start the bone healing. Maybe we can skip a little bit because it takes time with the piezo. But look, I'm unscrewing now the implant. That means that I destroyed very, very, very few bone. And this was my objective. So I will do, of course, the same thing on the other side. So I go with piezo, and I go all around the implant. And if you do this with a common drill, it's very dangerous because it's very, very easy to cut the cortical bone with a turbine and to go in a very dangerous area in the point of view of vessels. With piezo, we are almost safe and we can preserve a lot of bone. So I go and unscrew also this one, the same story, and then I go with a piezo to do a better preparation of the site because of course I want to go deeper. I prepare both with a piezo, and then I will take the power implant, the IML power implant, 1-piece implant. I will screw in a little augmentation and temporary. I sent this patient to the doctor and told him, do an impression and put tomorrow a temporary bridge. That's very, very important because we are talking about management with the patient. Because if to this patient I tell, listen, now we have to wait for 6 months for bone healing, and then you have to wait for another 3 months for implant healing. In 10 months, you will have your crown back. Get crazy. Because for him, all the therapy was finished. So, say you are crazy. In this case, of course, the patient wasn't happy for this, but he had the temporary at the same time, soon after the broken implant. So these are the two. So if you work in private clinic, please remember, we have always to take care of the psychological aspect of the patient. We have to manage very gentle with the patient. It's extremely important. Once again, I tell you the first day, the patient doesn't care about implant connection, surface. the patient wants just the tooth. If you put the tooth with the glue, for the patient, it's okay. So the tooth implant, some augmentation, resorbable membrane, suture, and that's it. Look, tooth implant, broken here in the area of the neck. And I told you, one of the most famous company we do have in Italy, and we export worldwide. Of course, it happens because the first one broke, and the second one is because of overload, but our tooth implant broken. And here is, after the surgery, there is also some PRF there, resorbable suture, and I sent to my friend and said, please, impression, and tomorrow put the temporary crown. And here is the control X-ray before the final restoration. Another case of broken implant, just to tell you the importance of buying a good company. You know what? I'm sure just down my office, just down my clinic in Lecce, there is a store that sells something for carpentry. I'm sure I could go down, buy something, and do implant with that one. And it will be integrated. But the point is that it's extremely important to have a good company. I don't care which one, but it should be a good company. Look here, two other broken implants. Why here? Because the interarch space was too big. So very long crown, maybe not a good quality implant system, and two broken implants. So what we do here, we do the extraction of the two implant and wait for healing. And what I'm going now to show you is a medium level surgery. And as I told you before, the problem with this kind of surgery is that we don't really like to do this because we know complication, we know all the problems the patient can have, we know all the time the patient calls us to tell it, I got pain, I'm blowing, and blah, blah, blah. But sometimes we have to do, but I will do another option for this. Anyway, as I told you yesterday, the only incision that we can do in the mandible, in between the foramen mentalis, is a vertical incision in the middle. That's it. So you do a vertical, you open a flap, and then I use a tree-fine to take some bone grain from the chin. So you can take it like that from 2 to 4 bone grain from the chin. Before removing the bone ring, I do with a drill the place for the retention screw here. Then I remove and I bring in upward to a vertical augmentation. Then I put some graft and I put membrane. This is a graft. This is tricalcium sulfate mixed with CGF or with PRP. And then I use an autogenous membrane and a market membrane to cover everything. So which is the problem? The problem is that this is quite hard surgery. And I want to give you a very interesting option for heart surgery. I want to try an inspiration for the KISS principle that is now and do something much more easier. So we did a publication about this, the boring technique, but the idea was to create something different. And that's why I put the pizza, that is a really Italian masterpiece. So the idea was, but what happens if I buy some bone, a bone ring, for example, from the market, so a xenograft, and as I told you before, xenograft is nothing. But what happens if I mix the xenograft with the growth factor of the patient. So I obtain growth factor, in this case CGF, concentrated growth factor. In a dedicated machine, I try to incorporate CGF in the xenograft. And I try to do this with the blood of some of my assistants, and this is the macroscopic aspect. So quite interesting. And so we try, with a good friend that is actually from Italy too, we thought, okay, a case similar like before, so we had to do a vertical augmentation in the upper, so we take out the implant and wait for primary closing, primary healing, and then the surgery now is completely different because we are not taking the bone from the chin or from the ramus or from the knee or from wherever you want, but we are taking the bone from the box and we are mixing with the growth factor of this patient, and that's it. So it changed completely, of course, the surgery. It became a very, very easy surgery. The preparation, now you have just to screw the block from the market there, a very big block, with only one surgical site. We screw it in, put some other membrane from CGF, that is a form of PRF, and closure. Maybe the only hard part is the soft tissue management, because you increase the load, you have to release to have a good closure of the wound. And here is 1 week after surgery. And what we did here is the block, and we take out the fixation screw, and we took a sample of bone with a trifine before placing the implant. And we sent the sample to University of Brescia for the histology. And the result was amazing, because after 4 months, we had 1/3 of the block that was new human bone, 1/3 of the block that was non-mineralized human bone, and only 1/3 of the block is residual bone graft. So it was possible to transform a bone block from the market that is nothing. It's like to take something from the wall for 2/3 in human bone. And we did a very interesting publication about this. So the effectivity of the use of xenogenic bone blocks mixed with autogenous concentrated growth factor, CGF, in bone regeneration technique. So this completely changed the approach to vertical augmentation. And we go and relate with the case crystal of Amsterdam. Look, this case, for example, I need a vertical and I need lateral augmentation at the same time, but I don't go and take the bone from the chin or from the chin, from ramus or from the tuber. I open the box. So I open the flap, I go and prepare the site for my ring. So it's only one surgical site. And for the patient, it's much more better. Only one anesthesia site. So here is the dedicated trifine to prepare the bed for the ring. And after everything is ready, we can easily incorporate the CGF from the patient, that means the PRF from the patient, with the block from the market in a dedicated machine. So now I'm preparing the hole for the retention screw. Here is the CGF. I put in the cap and I will put the block, the xenograph block inside. So I keep all the fibrin and I keep also a little part of red, because in the area going from yellow to red, we find the BMP, and I told you yesterday the importance of BMP, and we find stem cells too. This is during a course, so I'm putting 2 blocks inside, even if I need only one to show to the students to have the opportunity to handle the second block. So you can see the block. And we close and we put in the roundup machine for 16 seconds, so very fast. Then the bone is there and I'm just screwing in. So that means a better life for us and for the patient too. Then we can add some graft, and then we put the membrane, a resorbable membrane, and suture. So very small flap for vertical augmentation, only one subfilar side. The other aspect, as we are using growth factor, also the healing will be very fast, and the complication will be lower. So also this aspect is also very, very important. Once again, maybe the only little problem is to release the flap to close everything. This is always CGF, and this is to create autogenous membrane. So I press, I squeeze it, and I will have autogenous membrane with growth factor, but with the random growth factor and stem cells and BMP, and I will put there. Of course, you can put more than one to close everything. And then at the end on top, I wouldn't place today another collagen membrane, but I did at the time. So that's it. Suture we can skip. Suture is the patient, very easy surgery, very small suture. It's the fixation screw. Here is the implant in place and the crown. So let's see next block. We can do also multiple block vertical augmentation. 1, 2, 3. And this completely changed the surgery, because if you want to do this kind of augmentation, it's very, very hard. You have to do also extraction, or you have to take a lot of bone from somewhere and to put it there, fixation. Very easy, 3 blocks, there, that's it. 1, 2, 3. And then, which was the next step? Because anytime we present, someone in the room say, "Doctor, why don't you put the block with the implant itself?" There is a question for this. Because we need at the start to have the histology. So we want to go back with the refine and place the implant. Otherwise, it's impossible. So after we had the histology, we, in collaboration with the IML, we understood that the quality of the shape of the thread of IML universe was good to keep the block in place. So we didn't need any longer to do first fixation and then implant, but we did all together. Of course, to do this, you need an implant that is very active in the point of the implant. Because many implants, for example, also novel active, also the name is active implant, is active implant, but you need to put all the implant inside to obtain the primary stability because of the progression of the thread. Here, you don't have this problem, and the point itself is enough to give you a very high primary stability. That's why we start to do, like here, everything at the same time. So the extraction, and in this case, we put the block with the implant itself. This is just to condense the PRF. That's nothing very special, not very important. Sort of like, because of course we need anyway the primary closure of the lesion before providing. Why we need a primary closure? We need a primary closure because if we do a vertical augmentation, we have to move a lot of gum. So it's better to have a first healing. After a little bit with healing, and look, a very important release of periosum because we need to move a lot. And then we do the procedure as I showed you before. So we do and prepare the bed for the bone ring. Of course, this is a bone ring, but you can do also other shape of block and other CGF. So this tube bone ring with the hole for the implant. We try how does it fit, and then with a universe implant we go there and screw in. So we prepare the hole with very few water because we don't want to wash all the growth factor around. So the second drill of the universe fit. And then we try and fix it and jump a little bit. Also, a bit too much. Sorry. So, sorry. Okay. So we go and screw the implant and block together. And what we do here, we do use a larger cold screw to keep everything in the right position. That's it. Then we can have some sticky bone or whatever we want, and then do the closure of the area. So once again, a very easy surgery. So now, in the last minutes we have, because I want to give some minutes also for questions, I will show you what I consider can be the future in implantology. I've been working now for 4 years with IML and the University of Lecce City and in Switzerland to create something very important, something very new. And this is a European project called Horizon 2020. And the idea was related with what I showed you before, because I showed you the opportunity to add growth factor to a bone block. So I thought, but why we can't add growth factor, stem cells, and BMP to the implant surface itself? why don't we create the first biological active surface? And so we start to study how to apply the CGF on the universe implant. The problem with the titanium is the wettability of the titanium that is very, very low. What does it mean? If you take PRP and you put like a biscuits, your implant in PRP, and then you put it in the mouth, it doesn't work. There is no any growth factor if you do like that. If you want to have just a little bit of growth factor, you have to leave the implant at least for 50 minutes, 50 in the growth factor. That's not practical. It's not right. You can't say to the patient, okay, please wait 50 minutes and then put an open flap and then wait for the implant. It's impossible, of course. But this is a big problem with titanium. In fact, if you take, for example, a disc of titanium and you put a drop of water, it will stay there for 1 hour before having a little absorption on titanium. So the viability of titanium is very, very low. So what we developed was a machine to incorporate the growth factor on the implant surface. So this is a SIM microscope imaging. And I want to ask you something. What is this? It's fibrin, quite close to collagen. And if you remember the clip I showed you the first day, the first component for bone healing is fibrin. Even if we do extraction, we place an implant or whatever, it's fibrin, because the fibrin create a networks, and in that networks, the cells can differentiate and migrate. If we don't have fibrin, everything is on the floor with the blood. So here is fibrin. And the other point, what do we have in this fibrin? We do have the platelet-derived growth factor, the EGF, PDGF, and all the platelet-derived growth factor. And in addition, we do have stem cells. And in addition, we have BMP. So everything is already on the implant surface, is there, is ready for healing. And the procedure is very, very easy, because we put in the tube with the implant, with the universal implant, we put it there like a bullet of a gun, 16 seconds, and get us back. So one of the first experiments we did was to treat the implant and to play it in a ground. So one is PBS, that means normal without nothing. Other one are with something, but let's focus on PBS. That means a natural ground. And we put the implant there, and what we see is that from the implant, there is a release in PBS of vascular endothelial growth factor. So the implant itself is releasing vascular endothelial growth factor. What does it mean? If you remember always the first clip, the first component after the fibrin for healing is VAGF, vascular endothelial growth factor, because it recreates the vascular network, so recreates the oxygenation of the area. And then I thought, yes, but maybe when I put in the ground, I moved a little bit, and that's why we are finding the growth factor there. So what we did, we take out from that circle and put in another. When we take out, 2 day SV in Italian senza vita, without screw. So if we take out the implant, no more. But if we place the same implant in another ground, once again it goes up. So this was the confirm that it was the implant releasing vascular endothelial growth factor. Of course, after this, we checked in the University of Lecce with PDGF, TGF beta 1, with all the growth factors we knew that were there. We have tried, and it happens with all of them. What does it mean? That I can have this kind of healing. I can keep a very, very good bone level. The point is, you could ask me, yes, doctor, but yesterday you told us that with the universe, that is a conical connection with pattern shifting, in any way, I can have a good level of bone. It's true. In fact, what I told you yesterday, if I do implant in a very young woman or very young boy, doesn't matter, I'm sure that implant really works because of the quality of the healing. And all the pictures you will see now are in patients with diabetes, with osteoporosis, with someone with cancer. So all compromised patients, because what we will have to manage in the future is this. We won't treat young and healthy patients, but the 80%, maybe or 70% of our patients are patients with hypercholesterolemia, with diabetes, with a lot of metabolic disease. And in this case, to have active surface can make a huge difference. So all patients with metabolic problem. And then we did also a trial. I thought, okay, let's do a split mouth. This is a university implant, a big diameter implant. It's not a good idea to use a big diameter in the mandible. And that one is another company implant. So one is treated with CGF, the other one is not treated at all. So we finished the bridge work, and this is 2 years later. I'm sorry, I have also another X-ray I didn't put in this presentation, but what we can see here, the level of bone is very, very good here, and it's going down here. And in the last picture, I will find for you later, you will see that the universal implant with CGF is still very good, and the other one is going down. So we did, as I told you, a lot of experimentation about this. So we are talking about 4-year studies. Anyway, you can find on PubMed several publications we did, and the results were always very encouraging for us. So I think this can really be the future and make a big difference in the future. What we did with the handheld was to elaborate a surface that is good for standard use, because if you have a healthy patient in good condition, you don't need to take blood and to put in the machine and blah, blah, blah. So the surface is perfect, but it's a surface that is also perfect to add the growth factor if you have a patient that you have to treat with some problem, or a patient maybe that you did an implant, there's some complication, and you want to redo the implant and avoid the complication. So finished talking about complication. We saw implant failure, fracture or battle of the implant, the peri-implants infection. And the primary etiology factor of peri-implant infection is the bacterial biofilm. That's it. There are additional factors like history of periodontal disease. I don't really believe, because we do implant in periodontal patients. We don't do implants in healthy patients. This metabolic systemic disease, that's an important point. And in this case, growth factor can help us. The consumption halto, I don't know why. The implant surface can make a difference. The overload make a big difference. The keratinization of the mucosa, in my opinion, doesn't make a big difference. The bone graft procedure does, and also the bisphosphonates. Look here. I want to ask you something. What is this? How do you can call that kind of implant in the book, in literature? Pardon? Yeah, correct. But I mean, if you have to give a name to that implant, an adjective to that implant, how do they call in the book, in the company of implants in the literature? I will tell you. This is a survival implant. So please keep attention, as I told you before. When a company comes and say 90% of survival success, survival implant. So the survival rate is one thing. The success rate is another thing. We have to read carefully. This is a survival. That means that the implant is still in the mouth, is not moving, but we do have a lot of problem because we do have pus, we have bleeding, we have pain for the patient. So what we can do here, or what I showed you before, we can do take it out and we can do a bone ring technique for a vertical augmentation. But I needed something different here. I tried to have a bone regeneration around this implant. So what I did, I cleaned all the implant with a bar, high-speed bar. I take some bone, human bone, autogenous bone from adjacent area, mix it with growth factor, and then I place a CGF membrane on top. After this, I put the crown. I grind a little bit, but I put the crown. Because as I'm telling you since 3 days, bone need load for healing. So I want to have a gentle touch on the bone to give an information to the bone. You have to become bone. If you don't do this, you won't be bone. So here is the patient at the time of surgery, 6 months later, and 1 year later. So it's a very interesting result. Once again, using the growth factor, just to underline also what we are trying to create with high-end health, with a biologic surface. To explain the power of this project. To be honest, not always it works like that. And I will tell you a funny story, because I was in Korea, in a very, very big conference, and I called them in the middle, rise up hand and say, hey, professor, but you tell me that that one is not the start, and that one is not the end. And I want to say like that. It gave me a good idea for new cases. But at the end I say no, because here is the thread, and there is not the thread. So this was my answer, but it was quite shocking situation. So this is my clinic where I perform also courses with life surgery, but I understand it's quite far away from you. This is my This is my university, that is the College of Medicine and Dentistry in Birmingham, and we are now trying to create a partnership between this university and your university that I found an amazing place, very nice building, amazing structure. So I really do my best to create this good cooperation, and because it can be very useful for both. For Albania and for the College of Dentistry to go together. And before finishing it and leave some minutes with your question, I want to thank my family because it's for the time I take away to my family if I can be here with you. And this is a very old picture because now this one is 13 and the other one is 16. But I keep this picture for my wife to be younger. But it is still very nice anyway. So this is very nice. I want to thank all my patients, and I won't let you with something that was teaching to me from a big friend from Brazil, Dr. Milton Cardoso. And the concept is that the video smiling make a man special creature, and it can change meaning, but in any case, it is a demonstration of a positive attitude toward life. And I really think that we don't have to forget this, because we don't put on implant, but we can really improve the life of our patient. So thank you very much for your kind attention. Thank you very much. So if you have any question, feel free to ask, and I will answer, of course. The block is bone, but it's animal bone. It's a xenograft. So, you know, the one like by horse, just to give you an idea, but it's in a solid version. A lot of companies do this. The point is that it's not important what kind of bone, because the reality is that for our body, what we are putting there is not important. It's just volume, it's just a scaffold. Then biologically what happens is that cells comes, for example, macrophages, PNL, a lot of cells, eat the bone and recreate new bone. So it's just a scaffold. So the reality is that we buy from the market a lot of bone substitute. We pay a lot of money, but it's nothing. If you go outside on a wall and you scrap is bone substitute. It's the same. Of course, you have to do sterilization and all of stuff, but that's it. Because we think it's bone, but it is not bone. It's just a structure similar to bone. That's it. That's it. It's a graft. Yeah. That's it. First, I take the blood from the patient and I put it in a machine that is similar to a centrifuge. It's not exactly a centrifuge, but similar. Like PRF, PRP is a machine like that. The tube, and I obtain CGF. After I obtain CGF, I use another machine to incorporate the CGF on the implant or on the block or wherever I want. The project is even bigger because we started from the implant, but we are already now working for any kind of prosthesis. For example, for breast prosthesis, now we are incorporating on the breast prosthesis the CGF surface all around the silicone. So yeah, with the same, a bigger machine, but the procedure is the same. So the idea of this project is to create a biology of something that is mechanic. That's the idea. So we can use in several fields of regenerative medicine. My pleasure. Okay, no more questions. So after 3 days of art lessons, you are free to go and have fun. Thank you very much. Thank you very much again. Thank you.
You are free, sure.